Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to the March 9th, 2021 Northern Lebanon School District Board meeting. I call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you for joining us virtually this evening. Please know that all webinar community member participants will remain on mute during the meeting unless they have put in a request to speak during the public comment period. Those wishing to make public comment were asked to submit that request by 4 o'clock this evening via email or online form. And now Director Murray will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And a moment of silence. Thank you.
Mrs. Martin, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Gray,
Here.
Erdman,
Here.
Fowler, Marlowe,
Here.
Murray,
Here.
Klein,
Here.
Sekelic, Nom,
Here.
Bucks,
Here.
Director Fowler absent. All other members are present.
Thank you. I'd like to announce that the board met in executive session on March 9th to discuss confidential student settlement agreements. It should be noted that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 84 of 1986. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. The high school students of the month for March are Tessa Berdinka and Haley Mullins. This award is sponsored jointly by the Fredericksburg and Jonestown Lions Club, and each recipient will be recognized at a future meeting of the Lions Club. The middle school student of the month for March is Riley Thompson. This award is sponsored by the Northern Lebanon County Rotary Club, and each recipient will be recognized at a future meeting of the Rotary Club. Congratulations to all of those students. Our student board representative is Eileen Zemba, and she will be joining us next month for an update for February and March. And now we move to our superintendent's report. Dr. Messinger.
Mr. Kless, do we have Eliza? Okay. I've asked Eliza Shirk to join us tonight for a few minutes. As you know, I talked a little bit about the bowling team. We certainly have had some individual successes and some team successes over the winter sports. Both the boys and girls basketball teams finished around 500, maybe slightly over 500. And the wrestling team had some accomplishments as well. But the team that won a championship was our bowling team. And we don't get to say this very often, but we've now been able to say this for 2 years in a row. One member of our bowling team is the Lebanon Lancaster League champion, and that's Eliza Shirk. So I asked, hi, Eliza, thanks for joining us. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What can you tell us? Talk to us a little bit about how that went, and were you nervous? What were you thinking? You'd been through this before, so.
I mean, there's not much to say. It feels really good. Of course.
What's the secret? What's the secret to your success?
But stay calm. And just be myself, I guess.
Can you teach a slightly overweight superintendent to bowl anything higher than about 100?
Of course.
All right. Well, we might need some lessons. Do any of the board members have any questions for Eliza?
I just want to say congratulations. I watched it all season. You did a great job. The whole team did a great job. It was fun to watch. Been watching for 4 years, and you guys just did an amazing job. So good job, Eliza. Well done.
Thank you.
Eliza, I'd like to recommend it to our president, Director Bucks, that we enter your name and your accomplishment in the board minutes to record that. We actually just did a retention policy on our records. How long do we have to keep board minutes, Pat? Is that forever? So you will be on the board minutes forever. And somewhere in somewhere in Northern London, I don't know where all those are. But congratulations. We're really, really proud of you and your teammates. I know that there was a lot of success there. And thank you for joining us for a few minutes, but I wanted to make sure that we recognized you and just appreciate all your hard work. And I understand you have a pretty good coach too.
Yeah, he's okay.
All right. Thank you, Eliza.
You're welcome.
The other part, I wanted to make sure that I updated you on our long-term plan. I have a draft ready. We actually have a vision statement drafted as well. I've been working a little bit with Director Bucks on a couple of different versions. And she has someone that has some knowledge there. So you're going to hear, if you haven't already, very shortly from your committee leaders to go through that one more time with those draft goals. And then also, if there's any other ideas you want to put in there, we can do that. And then after that, we'll put the whole thing together and share it with the entire committee. But we're looking at probably trying to get together those subcommittees as early as next week if the group members are able to pull that off. We're going to talk about it at our leadership meeting this Thursday. But as I was trying to go through that and organize it and write some things in goal statements, clearly there had been some good discussion in a lot of the groups, and I think we have a document that'll be a good foundation for us setting goals over the next 5 to even longer years. So appreciate that. We'll make our next steps on that in the next week or two. I have 2 other topics that we'll talk about as we go through, but I'll wait until we get to them. So that's the end of my report for now.
Thank you. Is there any old business for discussion this evening? Hearing none, we will move on to the public comment session. Those wishing to make public comment were asked to submit that request by 4 o'clock this evening via email or online form. And Mrs. Martin has informed me that there are no public comment requests this evening. By notice of the president, the following action items suggest a roll call vote. You will be recorded as voting in the affirmative for the motion unless you say nay or I abstain. Board members are further advised that they must publicly announce and disclose the nature of any conflict of interest before the vote on the matter is taken and file the appropriate form with the secretary of the board. Now we will move on to our items for board action that are on the consent calendar. This includes items 1 through 17, and all of these items were discussed last week. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as approved? May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, Dr. Bucks, I will be abstaining from item I-17. Out of an abundance of caution, my wife is a part-time classified employee.
All right, thank you for that disclosure. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, this is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Now we have several items for discussion and action this evening. Dr. Messinger, would you like to introduce the first 3?
Yeah, the first one is the 2 settlement agreements that we discussed in exec session. The second one is we have a football coach. I'd like to thank the committee for the interview process. We had 3 board members that were on that committee, and excited about that. And the third one is we have a couple of resignations. Mrs. Bixler's been with us for a little while, and as you know, she recently had a baby, and she's going to stay home and take care of that baby, that little one, and we're going to miss her, but thank her for her years of service here. And so those are the first 3 items.
May I have a motion to approve the first 3 items, items 1 through 3, as presented? May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Now we move on to item 4, the bond resolution.
Yes, that's the resolution that was attached to board docs. That is, we do have Brad Remming, and Steve is with us as well, in case there are any questions about it. The one thing I do want to point out, and Brad, correct me if I'm wrong or add to it if you'd like, the dollar amount says $25 million. However, there is a contingency in there that if our rate comes in lower than, if more can be borrowed, because we're going to have to borrow more anyway at some point. If more can be borrowed because the rate is so low, that they would take advantage of that. So if it winds up being 26.2, it would be, that's a possibility. I don't think that it's, Brad, can you speak to what the cap on that would be?
Sure, that's a good question. So what happens when we sell municipal bonds is you sell them with a face amount or a principal amount or a par amount, and the resolution sets forth that at 25 million. Quite often what we're seeing, because rates are so low, a lot of bidders will pay a premium. So they may, for a $25 million worth of bonds, they may pay, as Gary mentioned, 26.2 or $27 million in order to purchase that $25 million bond. So to the extent the auction runs well tomorrow, and it's scheduled for tomorrow morning, we'll see how the bids come in, and we could get more dollars for you for the $25 million bond. It's what's called premium. Steve, I'll be happy to defer to you if you think you want to explain anything further, but the face amount's 25 million. And because of the bidding process, we might experience a premium, and that will help us offset by the next issue that needs to be done in 2022. We would just be able to downsize the amount that we otherwise thought we would have needed for that bond. So that's kind of a thought process on that, but I appreciate you bringing this up and making sure everybody's aware of how this bidding might go tomorrow.
And I guess I would just add as well that for DCED purposes, and we'll be filing an application with DCED to approve this bond issue, and the maximum amount that will be on your debt statement for state purposes will be $25 million. And as Brad noted, that we may have for state purposes debt of $25 million, but you may receive bond proceeds of $26.5 million that you could use for your construction fund. So for state purposes, we're going to be limited at 25, but for your construction fund, we may have more money in the till at the end of the day.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions for Steve or Brad? Steve is from Stock and Leader, if you didn't remember that.
So it can't go any less than 25. I mean, there's a bidding process, it's not going to go less. It's
No, it
just
wouldn't go
that's-
less.
That's the minimum, and it's going to go up from there. Okay, thanks.
May I have a motion to approve Resolution 4, 2021 in the amount of $25 million?
Motion to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I think I would just like to say that I view this as very momentous. This is an important step in a process that we started well over a year ago. And there's been a lot of hard work that's gone into it. So I just commend everybody that's done that work. I believe this is an important and necessary step for us to take. And I'm definitely in favor of this.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, this is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. We move on to item 5, that is a contract.
Yes, it's time to renew the contract for the Director of Business Affairs, Ms. Martin. This new contract would be effective August 1st, 2021 and ends 7/31/2024.
Are there any questions on that item? May I have a motion to approve the contract of our Director of Business Affairs?
So moved.
May I have a second? Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Now we have one additional discussion item for this evening, that is to discuss the current instructional model and potential adjustments for the remainder of the school year. Dr. Messinger, would you like to begin that discussion?
Yes, I've had some conversations with a lot of you actually over the past month or so. There's been some changes around us. Certainly, we're starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I think the Johnson & Johnson vaccination for school district employees has provided a little bit of hope for everyone. We actually have employees that will be receiving, they received an email today and will be receiving signups beginning for Thursday. 127 of our employees actually on the dot will be signing up for vaccinations beginning Thursday over a period of about 10 days. And then next week, the remainder of our employees will also get the opportunity to register and then get into the second round, with hopefully everyone that wants a vaccination by the end of the month or very, very early in April, probably before Easter. So that's exciting for us. In addition to that, as you know, we've been following for months and months and months numbers across the county, across the state, but particularly for us paying attention to our county. As of last Friday, for the first time in a while, we went from a substantial to moderate level, which is we were at 98 last Friday. The substantial level is 100. And the question that I think comes up a lot is are we looking at anything over the remainder of the school year to change the instructional model that we're in? I will tell you, just to give you some numbers, we have approximately 1,200, just over 1,200 total students right now. Of those 1,200, approximately 300 of them are V3 and or fully virtual students, leaving us with, I'm going to say 905, I believe, students that attend in person, but it's 905 or 907, one of those two. We have 627 students that attend on Mondays and Thursdays, and we have 595 students that attend on Tuesdays and Fridays. We have also begun the process of identifying, and we identified 70 students that are struggling academically. Let me go back a step. At the beginning of the year, we identified some special ed students, some students that have internet troubles, and we allowed them to come 5 days a week, or some of them are not coming on the asynchronous days, so 4 days a week. At the end of the first quarter, we reached out to another group of students that we saw either struggling emotionally or academically, and invited some additional students back at that time. At the end of the second quarter, we did the same thing, really targeting students that were failing classes and at that point in danger of being retained in the grade level that they are currently in, and we invited them back. We continue to have some students that are failing and that are struggling. And so there were another 70 students both on, it's funny because while the grade level numbers are different, the exact numbers for total are the same, 71 students, I believe it is. 71 students on Monday, Thursday, and 71 students on Tuesday, Friday that we are going to invite back as well, giving us approximately a total of 600 students on, 700 students on Monday and Thursday, and just under that on Tuesday and Friday. So we have approximately 400 students that are not yet 4 or 5 days a week. And so that's where we stand. We will continue to analyze those numbers and look for students that might be struggling, and I continue to invite them. We've done it in a manner that we can get kids back in and have to make little adjustments, but not major adjustments. Now, as you know, in November, I signed an attestation form, and the two things that we had to agree upon in order to stay open were to get 6 feet at lunch and to follow the guidance for school closures. And that guidance for us was if you got 2 cases at elementary, you would close to clean. And if you had 6 cases at the middle school, high school level, you would close to clean. So we've been doing that. As you know, we shut down Lickdale for a little bit. We shut down Jonestown for a little bit. And obviously Thanksgiving and Christmas, we shut down the middle school, high school for quite a bit. That attestation form applies to when we are in substantial. And 1 week of moderate doesn't, the state guidance has been to look for 2 consecutive weeks to officially say you're in, whatever either the next level higher or the next level lower. So we're at 1 week, so I'm anxiously awaiting to see what the numbers do. But I do think it's important for us to continue to look at where we are. I will also say that when this whole thing started, the goal for a full return was to get to low, which, if you remember, is 10 cases. But there is some talk amongst school districts around us about coming back, and I think that's brought up some discussion internally. But I wanted to talk publicly and make sure that the public had an opportunity to see it on the agenda and comment if they'd like. No one chose to do that tonight. But to also find out and get feelings from the board to kind of see where you guys stand. We obviously will monitor it over the next few weeks. But I'd like to kind of give you guys an opportunity to talk about your personal feelings about it so that we have some direction as an administrative staff in terms of preparations for anything that might come our way here. So with that said, I'm going to open it up to, if anyone has questions, feel free to ask, but if you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts, that would be great.
Well, I guess I'll be happy to start the discussion. I do think that, first of all, I want to commend the administration for the hard work that you've done over the course of this year. It's obviously been my goal and my desire to get as many students, to get every student back in school full day. And I appreciate that we've been able to do that at the elementary level. As it pertains to the secondary school, I do think, this is my personal opinion, I do think that the risk that our secondary students face emotionally and mentally and educationally is starting to certainly outweigh the risk that they face from the current virus. For that reason, I really do appreciate the thought that is going on right now to try to return as many of those kids as possible to full-time instruction. I'm also very sensitive to the fact that attestation form presents limits on us. So I like the measured approach, Dr. Messinger, that you've talked about. As far as I'm concerned, I would love to task the administration with developing a plan that could be presented at our next board meeting that presents how the administration would like to return as many of those 400 students as possible to full-time instruction within the bounds of the attestation form, within the bounds of the other restrictions that we have. So yeah, thank you for the work that you've done to this point, and I would look forward to seeing a formalized revised plan.
I would echo Director Nam's comments on a desire to get every student back in as many days as we possibly can, whether that's 4 days, 5 days. I know some districts are moving back to, some that were at 4 are now doing 5 days. Those that were at kind of running a hybrid model like us are gradually moving kids back in, like you're discussing, to get them back into the 4-day model. I think, for sure I've seen or heard the mental side of this, and sitting at home, staring at a screen. It has been painful to watch. Personally, we have some kids that are at the college level. They're in person, but they're doing some online. It's been a struggle from an educational standpoint. You really wonder, are they getting what they paid for? You can say the same thing for public school, right? Parents are paying taxes. They want their kids educated. They want them prepared to be ready to move on to the next level. And I do, despite all the efforts, and I do think administration, teachers have done an incredible job in the midst of everything that's going on to try to do what they can to educate. But there are some major failures still going on. We have kids that are failing, kids that are, kind of dropping out of it from a social standpoint, from a community standpoint. And at the same time, we're seeing successes and I say successes in terms of lack of spread, virus, in the community. It's almost like we're living two worlds. If you look at, certainly the elementary level has been a success story. A little different. We don't have kids moving in the same way, but they've been able to be fairly successful. We're not seeing the spread. As Director Nam said, the risks on the virus side appear to be very low. It's great news that the vaccine is coming out as well. I think that will help any plan we go into. But elementary schools have been a success. Colleges, to some extent, some are back in person, have been a success. Businesses, look around here, they are, for the most part, manufacturing wise in this area, which we have a lot of, you're not seeing problems. They've figured out how to do it. And I don't think any of us are suggesting go back and stop doing what we're doing with cleaning and those things. But I think we've proven that some of these things are working. The spread's not there. So I think we should start to look at how do we now, we're not seeing the effects of the virus on the kids, but we are seeing the effects on the mental side. And I think we really, really need to look at that. Sports have been back, and I am amazed. I did not believe wrestling could actually exist in this environment, hand-to-hand combat, and yet it did somehow, some way. They took the precautions they had to. They were able to get through it. So, I think there's lots of successes there. Travel is opening back up as well. I really think we need to take a hard look at it, let the administration look at a plan and say, what do we need to get it done? And if that means there's a need there, we don't have what we need today, but there's a need, I'd love to hear that and figure out how we help make that happen. Because I think it's incredibly, incredibly important to get the kids back into a community. It'll be like the first day of school again if we are able to do that this year. There are kids that have not seen the other kids in a very long time. So I think it'd be neat to see. And I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we think when kids walk out of this school, they are actually not communing together. You watch the video camera as they pull in the parking lot. The kids they're not. I mean, again, I'm not saying this is not a real thing, but the risk level with the kids at this point, it's just not proven. And I think we've got to start to weigh that out.
Yeah, I'd like to, thank you. Are you done, Mike?
I am.
Thank you. That was some really good points, and I agree with Barry. Those of you who know me, I was adamantly opposed to that earlier. But a couple of things are taking place that I think warrant, a second look. And the first one, above anything else, is if we get our teachers vaccinated, I'm all about let's take a good hard look, because to send in teachers, and I'm one, so I'm a little biased, but to send teachers into classrooms. My classroom, when you talk about social distancing with 19, 7, 8-year-olds, we can do whatever we can, but it's not a reality. So having our staff protected, the kids, like we mentioned before, do have a lower risk of any real detrimental effects other than getting sick. There is always that case of obviously something really going bad, but certainly numbers prove out that the younger students don't have the effects of COVID like an older population. The other thing is that we would have the ability, and I'm sure the way that Northern Lebanon has run this program so far, I feel very, very confident in their contact tracing, which at our school that I teach at, is really the core of how we have been able to be in class in the elementary since October. And they're bringing the middle school and high school. Last thing I saw, I talked to Gary, I believe they're now moving in that direction. They're starting to bring the high school and middle school back in. And that's kind of where I stand. I would love to re-examine this, but again, with caution, as long as we have the thing. The one thing in the back of my mind, and I'm going to be like a Debbie Downer here, but I brought this up before, the idea of long-term effects. I had chicken pox when I was little, no big deal. Who cares? Well, guess what? I got shingles a couple of years ago, and that is a big deal. So who knows what that virus is going to lurk? Certainly, it's been doing some really strange things to people that had a mild case, and then 3 weeks later, just saw on the news, they die unexpectedly and then they look in and figure out what's happened. So cautiously, but I feel confident in Gary's leadership and what he's done so far, and how we would mitigate those risks. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, Director Gray, just to piggyback on yours, I wouldn't suggest us run and do this without, especially now knowing that teachers have the opportunity to get the vaccination. So they'll have that opportunity, and I do think they're certainly a riskier pool. That the numbers show that. So I agree. Move cautiously, but take a hard look at this.
Yeah, I had some stuff written down, but I don't even have to say that. You guys covered everything. But as I was sitting here, I was thinking, we can look at in our very own county of this working. Our CTC has been going 5 days a week with kids from all the districts since school began. They removed obstacles and they just kept on working towards a solution to get kids in school. And it can be done. That's the one point I'd like to bring up, is that it can be done, and we don't have to look much further than the CTC. The other thing I'd like to bring up is, just with that, is there's very little evidence attendance is spreading the virus. And I'd also like to point to CTC, because just like us, they shut down occasionally for a day or two. But other than that, it's not rampant spread. And they've been going through the harder months. I just wanted to bring up that point, and that's all I got. Thanks.
I want to add one more thing to it. Just as I've thought about this, the other thing that comes to mind is this may not be the last time we have to manage through a situation like this. And I would love to know a way, or figure out a way, that we do this without kind of pulling the kids back out of school in some way. I don't know that that's possible, but but certainly as we start to take this step, thinking about that, how do we have more kids in teaching the way we know they learn better, or most do, not all. How do we figure that out for the next time that it's not as impactful in a negative way to as many people. So along with doing it for this, I think it's long-term planning for if this comes up again, if, God forbid it's COVID-21 or something else. This isn't real wood, but I do think we should be prepared. I would, certainly we've all discussed the fact that when we pulled back in the spring, a year ago already, March 13th was that day. My kids, it is burned in their heads when we talk about it. It's like, March 13th. And they thought they were coming back in a week. That's what they thought. That would have been great if we knew how to break away, get prepared, come back in a week and start it again. And I think we need to be thinking big that way. I don't know that we can do it, but I'd love to, figure out how we do it the best we can.
I'd just like to echo what everyone else has said. It seems like a lot of people kind of have the same thoughts. And I guess one thing I would like the administration to consider would be, I totally agree with trying to bring, hopefully working to bring kids back at some kind of full-time basis. I see that personally at my own house. I feel like over the past year, I've kind of been losing my two boys on the social end and stuff. They're kind of turning into zombies. So I think the benefits definitely are on a higher end if they can be back in school. I know from creating an online class myself, they say that online classes, teaching online, teaching virtually is like 5 or 6 times more work than it is when you teach face to face. And it is, I mean, thankfully I'm a phys ed teacher, so it's not as tough for me, but I know what our other classroom teachers go through where I work. And I would just like the administration, if we do work towards going back full time, to really consider that Wednesday cleaning day, number one, for the hygienic part of things. But number two, I believe probably part of the plan would be to still offer virtual to families that might not be comfortable coming back. So if we are going to have our staff teaching virtually, I mean, a ton of stuff gets done on Wednesdays with teachers that teach, especially the core subjects. I mean, even as a phys ed teacher, my Wednesdays are very busy at Hershey just with catching up on grades. And I can't imagine elementary. Well, I guess elementary is full time, but the middle school and high school teachers that are teaching science and English and stuff, if we can work hopefully towards a full-time schedule, I really think that cleaning day and planning day for those teachers that are working virtually, hopefully, that could be something that's discussed as being kept in there for the remainder of the year. But that's all I have.
I'd just like to take this time to thank the IU for their part in getting that vaccine out to the districts in Lebanon and Lancaster. I think that they were working hard on that, and so I'm thankful for their work on that. I think now that we know that the vaccine is coming and going to be a protection for our staff, I think that, we can, I look forward to the plan that will move us in the direction of getting kids back to school as much as possible for all the reasons stated here. So I know in my work in foster care, and this isn't just in Lebanon County, so it doesn't apply necessarily, but I have gotten more referrals for children needing out-of-home care because of truancy. and that they're truant because there are not adults there that are supervising. So I think that the need for children to be in a school setting and to have supervision and have someone guiding that is, I mean, I think we're seeing it kind of all over, that it's just, it's so very necessary for kids to be in school. So I would certainly be in support of a plan that is going to move our kids, every single kid, in the direction of being back in contact with adults who are leading and guiding and facilitating learning for them. So.
I guess I want to start by saying how amazed I am at the district, at the job the district has done in keeping infection within the school from happening and in stopping that. I think if you had asked me in August or September, I had significant concerns that that might happen because at that point, I don't think we fully understood how much the masks were protecting. And so I think many of us have been very pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised, but just really happy that the masks are really keeping the virus at bay. And so I want to commend our administration and our teachers for being a large part of that. I kind of feel like we are in the middle of July during a pregnancy at month 8 or 9, where we're just about to the exciting part of life, but definitely in the middle of the pains of the process. My concern, if we move too fast on things, if we don't have the proper procedures in place within the school and we bring 50% more kids back each day, is that if we would have more infections, presumably as a result of when masks are off, any time where we have more infections, that increases the risk of variants. And those variants could escape the protection offered by the vaccine. And so at this point, as a scientist, that is my significant concern, is if infection rates become high, that increases the risk of an escape virus, and that puts us way back several months. And so I don't want to get to that point. I think that when masks are on in the school, even at times when social distancing is not possible, what the data shows is that it is safe. My concern is that when masks are off, namely in the cafeteria. And so as a board member, I think in my mind, it's easy to sit here and say, you must do something, you must bring students back. But I think from an administration standpoint, they're the ones tasked with whatever burden this could place on them. They're the ones that are doing the contact tracing. They're the ones that are contacting parents. And so I respect our administration and their ability to troubleshoot and to see, is this possible to do safely? I know I had to sign that attestation form as well. And even if it is not, if we're not held to that when we are in the moderate level, I still think that those guidelines are important to follow because they are there to prevent infection and spread. So I've been teaching remotely and online for a year and bringing biology labs online. And so teaching and learning online is difficult. I fully agree with that. And I think everybody is kind of suffering in some way throughout all of this. So I empathize with all of that. But I prefer to kind of move cautiously, and I will respect whatever our administration says is possible while still moving in a safe direction.
Thank you all. And I'll call Director Fowler too, who wasn't with us tonight, and speak with him. You know, I do think that we need to continue, I agree, to offer the virtual option. And I think, any decision, we need to make sure that people do understand, as you pointed out, Glenn, that a full, bringing back more kids does tighten up spaces. I've had some parents that have called me concerned about the fact that their student was quarantined because they thought we could get 6 feet in classrooms. And our safety plan doesn't actually call for that. It calls for the greatest extent possible. And in some high school classrooms, it's 7 kids and it's really easy. And in some high school classrooms, even in a hybrid model, I don't know why we have an abundance of kids sometimes with A to M, but sometimes we do. And you wind up with 20. And it's just a mathematical oddity. And they don't have 6 feet and they get quarantined. And I want to make sure that there isn't a perception there that they're coming to school full time, and if that were to be the case, and that they are getting 6 feet all the time. So I think communication with the public is important. I think offering the virtual option, and we have 100, as I mentioned, about 300 students that are attending either virtually V3 or live stream, and those students are attending live stream, I believe, for a reason, and that's their own personal beliefs, and I'd like to continue to offer that. As numbers hopefully continue to go down and vaccines continue to roll out, maybe that changes some things in terms of people's thinking. But for now, I think it's important to continue to give our parents and families options. So what I will do is over the next few weeks, I'll talk with administration. As I mentioned, we have a meeting this week. I will update you every Friday with my updates on where the numbers are and if there's movement in terms of preparation and planning. I usually communicate that with Director Bucks and then put it into my updates. So we'll continue with that process as we move forward from here until our April committee meeting, and we'll discuss it again at that point. And again, thank you for your input. That's helpful.
Are there any other comments on this discussion item? All right, we will move on to our reports from our representatives. Oh,
I just have a quick
I'm
question.
sorry.
So we have our plan right now is for a certain level. And if we go down lower, is the administration going to be looking for direction from the board, or can you act independently?
Well, with a decision this big, I'm not going to act independently. However, it's written to give me the flexibility to move back and forth depending upon the level, so that, honestly, when Michelle and I were just talking about this today, in September, we were at 12 thinking and headed in a direction where we thought we were going to hit low, and we were starting to talk about a full return, and it just reversed directions and didn't stop for a long, long time. So I do have that ability, but I would like to come back to committee and talk about the plan and discuss it one more time as a board before the second or the final quarter and April break, Easter break, the final quarter ends April 7th. So the timing is really good because we would have a committee meeting right before that.
Kind of piggybacking off what Michelle was saying about, kind of not just rushing into this, but kind of taking our time, and we would need that anyway to get everyone vaccinated.
I would really like to see a continued trend with the numbers going down. Going back and forth, if the numbers are floating back and forth between substantial and moderate, Director Marlowe, you talked about it a little bit. There are some advantages, and not that they can't be overcome. We can always figure out answers to challenges. Our building is not designed to be very conducive for spreading out. I've referenced this before, but if you walk through our middle school halls and a break of classes, I feel like I'm in the middle of Manhattan on Black Friday. It was when that was built, there's not enough space, and so That's an obstacle for us as opposed to some other school districts that have newer buildings or larger rooms to be able to spread out. It doesn't, I'm not saying that I can't overcome those obstacles. We can figure something out, but going back and forth between substantial and moderate and then making sure of the 6 feet at all times, that's going to be something we're going to have to talk about over the next few weeks. And then Director Bucks, to your point, trying to get that 6 feet maybe in moderate would be helpful because then we wouldn't have to worry about that. So that'll be a goal for us over the next few weeks to talk about that. Unless we'd like to renovate this building in the next.
Right now. Yeah,
So-
there you go.
So I didn't say anything because I think in my head, it's like a scale because there's board member, there's parent, there's community member, there's just so many different things. And I agree, it's easy for us to sit up here and say, I want to see kids back in school. My son got a letter that he was failing 3 classes. So we were one of those parents where, gosh, 5 days a week would be great. At the same time, we're saying that student numbers aren't high, but we're guidelined right now to be hybrid with masks. So we don't know if those numbers will stay low if we go full time. I mean, I agree. I can't stand as an adult to walk these halls in between classes because it's a little bit of a chaos. So I don't have an answer. I would like to see a plan, but I would be comfortable with seeing a hybrid continue with 3 months left in school just to kind of get us there, but I don't have a right answer. So I'm giving you a maybe.
I don't know that we've have answers, but.
I'll just add that one of my concerns is if we bring many more kids back or all kids back, if we see a spike in infections or spread within the school, this would be happening right at the end of school, right at the end of the school year. And I think it would be a big shame if that would somehow impact some of those big events that generally happen at the end. I know they're working together some sort of makeshift prom, the senior trip, and graduation. So I think we want to be mindful that we want those highlights to definitely happen. We don't want to rush towards something and then have to pull back, because I think that would be almost as heartbreaking as it was a year ago when 1 week became a year. Any other comments?
Is there a way, obviously, community has a chance to view these, view this discussion, but how do we get a little bit more feedback maybe from the community, from teachers formally? I think your meetings will pull some of that out because I think that would be interesting for us to hear.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, on the other side of it, just so that people know that it's the thinking is there, because it'll be an adjustment for parents that right now, they won't want to, hey, Monday, your kids are completely back. It may take some adjustment for that. Just so they know we're thinking about it. So I don't know if one of your letters going out or something of that nature would be helpful.
Actually, Director Bucks and I had talked about a potential survey, something simple, doesn't have to be long. I know people are kind of surveyed out about COVID, but something simple just to kind of get a feel for where the community stands. I have a relatively good idea in terms of teachers. However, I do talk with the union president about it and get some feedback there. But I think that's also changed a little bit with the rollout now of the vaccinations. I definitely, some of the folks that have talked to me, there's definitely a sense of relief for them, and that's good. So, those feelings may change over the course of another week or two.
All right, thank you all for the the discussion. I look forward to hearing what Dr. Messinger is able to report to us next month. Now we will move on to our reports of our representatives. First up is our Career and Technology Center. Our representative is Director Klein.
I have nothing to report this month.
All right, then moving on to our IU13 representative, Director Murray.
Other than just thanking the IU again for their work in getting the vaccine to the Lebanon and Lancaster districts. And I know they have worked hard on that. So just want to continue to thank them for their work in that and the work they do.
Thank you. And then our legislative PSBA liaison, Director Sekelic. I would like to remind everybody that as far as PSBA goes, their advocacy day is Monday, March 22nd. And so they will have a report from their legislative representative. And then there is usually opportunity to speak with our local representatives as well, which all of that is being done virtually. But especially the keynote in the past has been good. One other thing that PSBA talked about recently, they do have a weekly meeting with board leaders, and that is the significant impact that charter schools are having on local districts, on public schools. Each year, the amount of money that public schools are paying to charter schools continues to increase. Usually, I think it's in the realm of 100-some million additional. But this year, a conservative estimate is that it will increase $335 million. That's an increase, not just a lump sum, but an increase. And that money should, in my opinion, be going to public schools, but it is going to charter schools. And so PSBA has been working really hard to get our legislature to reevaluate that funding method. Not to take away the option of charter schools, not to take away school choice by any means, but to make that funding formula fair. And so that's one thing that PSBA is working on our behalf for, because that is a significant, that the charter schools have a significant impact on the budgets of every local school district, and that's something that is completely out of our control. So I'm sure they'll be talking more about that at Advocacy Day. Is there anything else for the good of the order this evening? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. This meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night, everybody.